What's up, folks? I'm Nick NWN. What's up, folks? I'm Nick MW, aka the Rider by Night. This is the Saturday Night Special, episode number 24, the last episode for the year 2024, which seems crazy as fuck to think about. I mentioned this in the last episode, but here we are up against another year, and they just keep shooting by. I've heard people the last couple weeks on the internet, in videos, posting, in memes on post, how COVID has seemed to kind of accelerate time. And I agree. Since the pandemic, it seems like the years are just kind of blending together. And before we know it, we're just in the end of another year, and it's holidays again, and it's another year. And we're getting older. Time is slipping past us by. And one of my resolutions is to recalibrate myself and refocus on just enjoying the day-to-day, slowing it down a little bit. The most mundane activities, the work, the things I love, the things I hate, all of which I would be very sad to see get taken away from me. And that's what happens eventually, right? The further along time flows. Hopefully later than sooner, but as you get older, it becomes sooner than later because all that other shit passes you by. And this is the kind of thought process I go through, a lot of people go through, as the years keep ticking by, as our children grow, as our hair changes color, our face gets more wrinkled, all this shit. And you young whippersnappers out there, it happens before you know it. People always told me this, and I know people tell you this. I'm telling you this right now. Believe it. Believe it, motherfuckers. Believe it. But with the end of the year, I get to thinking of the year that's come and gone and the year that's approaching. I take stock of where I'm at, what I've done in terms of personal projects, and where I'd like to go. And so one of the things I like to do, obviously, is write. You can check me out on farfromprofessional.com or nickmacwillie.com. That's where I post my shit. That's where I post other people's shit. And let's be honest, we are amateur writers. So one of my last amateur writing projects of this year for the ffp.com, I wanted to look at my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Not because anybody asked for it, but because, if you're going to write something you enjoy writing. And I want to keep it lighthearted, and I like movies. And it gave me a reason to, number one, sift through a list of about 30 of my favorite movies that I wrote down and spent a lot of time curating and moving movies in and out of. And then I sat down and watched all of these movies over the course of the last 6 months. So on that end, I got to revisit a bunch of movies I love, a bunch of movies that I watch about once a year anyways, as it is, and I've seen dozens of times in my life. But it's also kind of a tricky and impossible task because movies that I loved as a kid, I found were not even in my top 30 anymore. Some of them, not all of them, some of them. And probably in another 10 or 15 years, movies that I like now, I may not like then. But fuck it, this is my midlife top 5 goated movies. And my number 5 of all time is Unforgiven. It's Clint Eastwood's best Western, and this is coming from a long list of Western movies that he's starred in and directed himself in. The Man with No Name trilogy, High Plains Drifter, Outlaw Josie Wales, Pale Rider, all those movies. Unforgiven is better than all those movies. It's one of the best movies he's ever directed. It is simply put, if you haven't seen it, it is about an old gunman who's retired from that outlaw way of life. Then he's trying to go straight. He's trying to do right. He's a widower and he's struggling. He needs money for him and his 2 kids. And there's one more bounty that comes a calling. Again, simple way to describe that movie. But that's number 5. Number 4. Number 4 is a movie people love to hate, which is Interstellar. Interstellar. Yeah, you can poke holes in the plot. You can discredit the science. Christopher Nolan is not out here to make a movie to educate you. He's not teaching you physics class. This isn't a documentary. This is a work of science fiction designed to entertain, and entertain it does. It's got a thrilling soundtrack. It's got beautiful visuals, a great cast, and a thought-provoking story. Far-fetched, sure. Black holes, time, space, gravity, all this stuff. I thought it was fantastic. One of my favorite movies of all time. Top 5. Number 4 favorite movie of all time. Number 3, Fight Club. Brad Pitt, Ed Norton, Helena Bonham Carter, David Fincher. Perfect movie. It's a perfect movie, man. It's got the cast that I mentioned. It's such a highly stylized, uniquely late 90s movie that captured the dysfunction and hysteria of society careening towards Y2K, towards the end of the century. Some people thought it was a cliff. Some people thought it was a wall, a reboot, a reset. It was none of those things. We just moved on to the next day. And it's a great perfect adaptation of Chuck Palahniuk's novel. It's a great novel. Some folks don't like Chuck Palahniuk, think he's a hack, too much sex, too much violence. That's all his books are about. They're missing the point. When it's not for you, fine, move on. Fight Club, top 3, number 3. Number 2, Pulp Fiction. All right, Tarantino has made nothing but bangers. And if I would have pushed my list to 50, all of his movies would have made my top 50 for sure. I have 2 movies in the top 10, 4 movies in my top 30 altogether. The highest ranking, Pulp Fiction. Like Fight Club, it's another hit of nostalgia. I saw Pulp Fiction with my dad when it came out. Questionable parenting. I was a whippersnapper, middle school, and I don't think I've ever seen my dad laugh so hard in a movie. And it made the movie funnier to me. And I was just obsessed with that movie and its soundtrack, its style. It is an originator. It is an OG. There were so many copycat movies that came after that one. And it really is about nothing. It's about some gangsters in LA and some fictional version of 90s LA that I'm not sure really existed, but it was Tarantino's gangster movie in a city that he grew up in, with kind of a flavor and cinema that he loved. And the movie is just that expression of love and passion that he has, and it's fucking great. Top movie of all time. Number 1 movie. Has been my favorite movie for a long time. Fell in love with it as a kid, and here it stands as the greatest Star Wars movie of all time, The Empire Strikes Back. If you want to be technical, Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, but we'll just call it what it is. It is the greatest Star Wars movie. It's the only Star Wars movie I had on VHS for a number of years, but it taught me everything I needed to know about Star Wars, about the Force, lightsabers, about the dark and the light, and Yoda, and Han and Leia, and bounty hunters, and all that great shit. It's a fucking fantastic movie. And, it ends on a downer note, but it sets up the epic conclusion. Chef's kiss. And finally, highlights of the year. I'll just run this down real quick since we're coming up on time.